You've all had games where your bottom lane gets dove over and over again and feeds. You think you can counter jungle, but the enemy support shows up to cut you off. You lose your bottom side camps, you lose dragons. So how can you still 1v9 these kinds of games, keep yourself equal to the enemy jungler, and use every trick you know in order to be the superior jungle difference, to climb your way to your chosen peak? And as I'm sure you're aware, and this happens in your games too, your ADC and bottom lane get caught out from a level 1, Italy gets first blood, your bottom lane's behind, and now you're thinking, great, I'm gonna lose my bottom side quadrant as well. The thing is, 1v9 isn't always an easy job, and a lot of the time it takes a bit of patience. You need to see a few moves ahead. So we start our blue, do our grump, do our wolves. We're not entirely sure exactly what the Nidalee is doing, but you know their bottom lane was late to show, so probably she got leashed on the blue buff, and at least we have a ward on our Raptors to see that. The Yone will obviously try and abuse some prio and get a ward down by our Raptors too. Nidalee pops right up, and now you know your decision is set in stone. Because the Orianna's ward shows her Raptors are still available, you know Nidalee's gonna go ahead and do your red side. She shows on that ward with 12 CS and a blue buff. Basically what we're doing here is we're totally gonna give up half of the pizza. I know you want to eat the whole pizza, I want to eat the whole pizza, but the problem is the enemy jungler is taking your half. So what we're gonna do is eat all of their dessert. Or you could just make a new pizza, depends if you like dessert or pizza more. I don't know, I kind of go for both. But the one thing we damn well know is Nidalee's gonna try and dive the bottom lane or gank mid lane. She will have impact in those lanes. So we do our Raptors into the red. This is where things need to be very important and drilled into your mind. If you know straight away that, hey look, I'm gonna do the Krugs here, but I need a gank because Nidalee's getting fed in gold, experience, my laners are dying, I have to offset this somehow. Keep your eyes on top lane, rotate when top lane needs you, and get the kill when top lane needs you to get the kill. Don't do Krugs, watch them die and go, guys, you couldn't wait for me? Leave your camps, rotate, get the kill. This has been a biggest thing that I wrote about in the weekly email the other day. It's also the biggest thing that's helped my own game in the last 2-3 weeks is sometimes even I get stuck. Full clearing, farming, quadrant clearing, and it's very easy to develop a bad habit of not rotating to things where you can guaranteed get kills. And hey, guess what? Now with Mobalytics, you can actually track your LP gains over large sample sizes to see where you've plateaued and how far you've climbed. And when you combine that with using the best items and builds, using Mobalytics' new itemization feature with the best data, it's faster, it's more accurate, and while most sites just assess the items individually, Mobalytics now assesses them as part of a build, so it's way more accurate and reflective of how good they are. You can't just show a third item and say, look at the win rate, when you have no idea what the first 2 items were. All of this updated and pushed live to the companion app where you can put it directly into your client, along with all of the pre-game tips, post-game tips, as well as in-game tips. So if you want to dominate on the best junglers in the best way with all of the best information and keep up to date with all of the new itemization changes as the meta develops, click the link in the description below to download Mobalytics today. So you killed the Gwen, you became the Gwen, you took the Krugs, you take the top scuttle, you know Nidalee's gonna go back down and finish off your Raptor camp and then do the bottom side scuttle. If you can gank mid lane after the crab and get a kill here like we do, perfect. Excellent, you know the Orianna can use that lead herself, you know that the Nidalee just killed her, so it offsets that to a degree. When you reset, here's where it becomes difficult. How you offset vertical jungling is usually because they late invade you, and you can just take the camps when they respawn. When you do your own camps and then theirs, you really distort the respawn, and now it's quite difficult for you to go to the bottom side. You're not gonna have those Krugs respawn and those Raptors respawn together because the Nidalee took them out of order. So yes, Nidalee's gonna come out of base, do a grump wolves, and carry on ganking bottom lane. You're gonna go to the top side, take your grump, look top lane and say, you know what, I'm gonna rotate to the scenario. And again, this is one of these places where you rotate after a camp instead of doing wolves. The enemy top laner pushes in and actually ends up dying. You get nothing, but it's very important that you made this maneuver. You might get something, but also it's really good that the Gwen doesn't get something. Your Renekton is able to snowball. Now you might think, okay, eyes up, I can go back to my wolves, right? At least I tried to make a good play. No, look mid lane. Can I do anything mid lane? If you cannot, go and take her Raptors. You know you want to take those Raptors into the Krugs. You know the Nidalee's gonna be on the bottom side controlling those camps. But fortunately, there is something we can do mid lane. So we're gonna go ahead and gank this Yone. Why? Because the pre-6 gank is huge. You know that between 5:30 and 6 minutes, those solo laners are getting level 6. The Yones, the Shens, the Malphites, anyone with a powerful ultimate, you want to punish them before that comes up, burn summoners, and deny them. Now, because Nidalee showed on the bottom side, and again, she did red Krugs and ganked mid lane, and then did your Raptors, so the Raptors are respawning very far away from the Krugs. You know the Raptors are still up, so you go and try and take those. Fortunately, you get it. If you don't get it, you don't get it. The point is you can go up to your wolves and finally take that. Here's the question, does Nidalee now leave your red side quadrant and go to hers, or does she repeat gank bottom lane? I think we all know where this is going, and she continues to gank the bottom lane. Fortunately for you, that means you can now go ahead and steal her Raptors. Yone rotates, Nidalee rotates, and they kill the bard on your team, wandering around for his deets and doots, and basically at this point you're thinking, well, this isn't going so well for most of my team, but for me and Renekton, this is okay. And as you go take the Raptors, if an enemy supporter mid laner shows up trying to prevent you doing it, take what you can, smite what you can, and then obviously use that great angle of approach that I always tell you to gank the lane. Counter jungling leads to great ganks. Now remember, in the context of 1v9 jungling, when the enemy jungler is also getting fed, as long as you are handshaking their actions, by that I mean if they take your stuff, you take their stuff, if they take a dragon, you take a herald, as long as they gank bottom lane and you're ganking top lane, as long as the golden experience is matching up, you can wait for that right moment to really take over games, and I think that big patience is what separates your goon junglers from your jungle div savant. We're not too concerned with the Nidalee at this point. You know she's gonna gank bottom lane, you know she's taking her bottom side camps, your bottom side camps, you know she's gonna go for the dragon. So you take the more important thing, that's the herald. We don't really care about these nerfed and reduced base level dragons, we care about getting the herald, because the herald is the thing that's gonna allow you to propel your gold income way higher and potentially force a big fight. So while the Yone has been killed solo by the Orianna a few times, he's still got a kill in the bard, he's still a Yone who can be useful, and you know with the Orianna's push presence now, range vs melee, that there has to be some sort of Roman impact fight here, there has to be. It is developing. You know they're not going to allow you to control 2 lanes while she's only controlling 1. But the thing is, what you have to know is that enemy laners who get in bad situations, the higher elo you go, they understand that they can't beat the Renekton or the laner 1v1, so what are they going to do? Leave the damn lane. They rotate over, Gwen's there, Pyke is there, everyone is there, you get collapse punch, sure you get a kill, but you also die and give a shutdown away. So unfortunately, this didn't work out the way we wanted, but the idea was good. Use the herald, get gold, force a fight, win the game. Now though, we're on the back foot yet again. So, can we correct the vertical jungling we've had all game? How do you actually shut down the enemy jungler, the enemy Nidalee, in this particular instance? Well, considering you don't have timers on any of your camps, you know she probably, after the fight, is going to take something. You try and get your red, that's first step. Try and get the buff, because you know that just spawned, you know she's not going to have time to do the raptors and the red and the krugs. If she's there, you've spent your gold, you can win. You arrive, you recognize, cool, red buff, yay, bard dice to Nidalee, so you go, oh no, and your raptors are gone. So what do? We shadow mid lane, we take the top scuttle crab, and we take her top side yet again. As I said, this game was one where we couldn't correct the vertical jungling. Ideally, we never want this, but that's why I like this video, because sometimes when you have to 1v9, you're gonna face these weird situations. Yes, enemy junglers getting fed from dumb things, losing your camps. You know when to back away when you run into a Pyke. You know, just to give up some of the camps when the enemy support roams in your face. Just kill the Gwen again, that's the free food, that's a winning lane, you're getting fed as well. Now here's the thing, this might happen again. You might get another kill on the Gwen, the Nidalee gets another kill on the bottom side, you're still taking each other's camps, but because you're taking each other's camps so damn quickly now, the downtime between those camps all respawning is a lot greater. This leads to greater dead time, this leads to the ability to actually move around the map without worrying about farm. All camps are off the map, Renekton's taking the top turret. Now you know with this dragon coming up at around 13 to 40 minutes as the early game is about to end, you know you've got to use the gold you have. You're 611, she's 404, you're up about a camp or so, you are in the perfect spot to try and carry this game. First and foremost, if there's a neutral scuttle crab, please make sure you control it. Get good vision, clear stuff out, set a trap. You know the enemy jungler is going to think, oh, we're still doing this thing, you're taking top side, ha 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 ha. I have a feeding mid laner, of course. We all know it's a Yone, we know it's an Orianna, we understand these things. The thing is, Nidalee hasn't really translated her lead into the most plates. She hasn't translated her lead into the highest golden experience, whereas you and Renekton have done so. So you set your little trap, you let them start it up, you use the bard ult, and make sure you get those kills. At some point, your lead has to be used in a PvP sense. At some point, you're gonna have to kill people and actually show that you have the advantage. Here's the thing. Finally, now you control your bottom side quadrant, but you know the next objective is already spawning. So this is part of that Korean jungle secret video that I will leave a link below that I made a few weeks ago. It's okay to leave your red and your krugs because you're gonna match the Nidalee going up and force the prio to get the next herald. The objective control is important. This is the thing about the jungling principles they use in high elo. They know that they need to deny the enemy jungler whatever they want as much as possible. Even if it means they only get 8 out of 10 of what they wanted, if the enemy jungler only gets 5 out of 10 or 4 out of 10, you have the lead. And that's all you need to 1v9 games. It's okay to leave some camps, some objectives, to go get the more important ones, which is herald, and making sure Nidalee doesn't get herald. Even the second one is still useful. And here's where things get really interesting for the takeover, because again, the mid game is when you truly take over. I just covered this in a private Virkayu.gg jungle video that I don't release outside, but I was against the Kindred and I did a solid job denying them, but at a certain point we had similar CS and experience levels, but all of that is a foundation for a moment in the later early game and the mid game transition where you just take a 2-level lead out of nowhere. Everything is set up for that. So you go ahead, you take your red, your krugs, and Nidalee now doesn't really know what to do. Both of them walk around a little bit weirdly, kind of thinking that the vertical jungling's still going on, which is a bit strange, but I love doing this, what the Virkayu does right here. He notices through vision what they're doing, and thus drops the Herald with the Orianna and the Azrael pushing mid lane. I love doing this when a third dragon spawns or so, especially if you can't quite eke out the prio and you can't quite have the vision control. Drop it, let it shove, try and delay the fight, don't die for it, but watch that Herald do work. So here they go for a tier 2 turret. In the meantime, you try and kill people off and stop them from actually, cutting off your Herald. What this does if your team has to now reset and there's nothing for you to do on the map, emphasis, if there's nothing for you to do on the map and your team are resetting, don't agree to trap in their jungle, don't try and be a hero with 3,000 gold in your pocket, simply fall back to your blue side and do a full sequence down. The first one, all game bless. You go down from one camp to the next, you take everything off the map, you have a great 2-item spike, you don't have boots, but you don't care, it doesn't matter. Nidalee's completely compromised, you have a 2-level lead, look for her, look for a pick once your team is back on the map. They've gone back to base, they're reset, they're good. When they're back on the map to follow you and play off of your pressure, or when you're back on the map to play off of theirs, that's when you make your plays like this. Nidalee is now dead, you made the pick right before an objective. Take the objective, go into jungle, take what's available. They come out again, make a pick before they're able to set up, ace them, take 3 people down, it doesn't matter as long as you have numbers advantage. Take the Baron because it's 20 to 21 minutes. This was an exquisite example of matching, handshaking, offsetting pressure, getting fed yourself, getting more fed than the enemy jungler, and using a beautiful extended sequence here to stay out way longer than you would normally recommend. We bought GA in one buy, guys. We didn't upgrade our boots. We just focused on the thing now that's going to allow us to win the game in the next push. We did that by staying out longer than anybody else, playing the map perfectly, recontrolling our cams, making the pick, and immediately translating that numbers advantage into an objective, another one fight, and another objective. That's the big leapfrog movement. You might think, well, I'm equal with the Nidalee until 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 minutes, but you set everything up for this. Now you're up by like 3 levels. I mean, there's nothing they can do whatsoever, sometimes 4 levels. Truly, you are in control. And obviously now it's a pretty straightforward shoot to the end with picks and Baron pushes and all the fun stuff that comes from having a great item to end. Remember, you've got your stasis, huge AD ratios. Really, there's not much anybody can touch you with, and obviously this is more of a high elo thing, which is why I always link my mid-game guide for the rest of the MMRs below in the description for you to use. But I will say this now, we've had a few of these 1v9 carry jungle games where you can become a certain style jungle by 1v9ing. The Kha'Zix one, we did it beautifully and then we threw, so I showed you how not to throw. That was through a lot of ganking, a lot of control. I showed you the Kayn one where we used high pressure ganking routes, then high tempo counter jungling and farming to make sure the enemy jungler just got denied and couldn't really play the game. And then this one where the enemy jungler tried to do everything they could to snowball the bottom lane, to snowball the mid lane, to try and take control of you by making you stuck in one quadrant. But if you were the Virkayu and you played like him, then you would not have allowed it. You got the top laner fed, you saved the mid laner, you got yourself fed. And this Virkayu shows you exactly how to win, become a total carry jungler, no matter what happens, by using all of our fundamentals in different phases of each of the early games and mid games to get as much as we can, to deny as much as we can, and then wait for that sweet spot moment to take over. And of course that included a boo-boo moment where we died in the mid lane, but you know what? Not every game is perfect, and that, my friends, is why it's important to understand jungle fundamentals to become a big jungle monster. Click that video to learn more.